Have you ever been told to go find yourself? Maybe during a difficult transition, after a breakup, or when you're feeling lost? Well, what if I told you that this entire concept, this idea that there's some authentic you hiding somewhere, waiting to be discovered, might be completely backwards? Today, we're diving into a revolutionary idea from psychiatrist and philosopher Thomas Szasz, who said, "People often say that this or that person has not yet found himself. But the self is not something one finds, it is something one creates." This simple statement challenges everything we've been taught about identity and personal growth. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you might completely rethink how you approach your own personal development. Introduction to Thomas Szasz. But first, who was Thomas Szasz? And why should we care what he thought about the self? Thomas Szasz was a Hungarian-American psychiatrist and academic who spent his career challenging conventional wisdom about mental health, personal responsibility, and human nature. Born in 1920, he became one of the most controversial figures in psychiatry, known for his critiques of psychiatric diagnosis and his fierce advocacy for individual autonomy. What made Szasz unique was his unwavering belief in personal responsibility and human agency. He argued that we have far more control over our lives and identities than we typically acknowledge. And nowhere is this more evident than in his perspective on the self. You see, Szasz lived through an era where finding yourself became a cultural obsession, from the beatniks of the 1950s to the hippies of the 1960s and beyond. People would quit their jobs, travel to India, experiment with drugs, or isolate themselves in nature, all in pursuit of their true self. But Szasz saw this differently. He believed this was a fundamental misunderstanding of what the self actually is. The myth of the hidden self. Let's break down why the idea of finding yourself might be misleading. When we talk about finding ourselves, we're operating under several assumptions. That there's a real you that already exists somewhere. That this authentic self is somehow hidden or lost. That discovery, not creation, is the path to authenticity. That once found, this self is fixed and unchanging. Think about it. When someone says they need to find themselves, what are they really saying? They're implying that somewhere, perhaps buried under societal expectations, parental conditioning, or life's disappointments, there exists a complete, authentic version of who they are, like a treasure waiting to be unearthed. But here's the problem. This assumes that your identity is predetermined, like your eye color or your height. It suggests that who you are is a fixed entity, separate from your choices, actions, and experiences. Szasz argued this is not just wrong, it's disempowering. Because if you're constantly searching for something that doesn't exist in the way you imagine it, you'll always feel incomplete. You'll always be waiting for that moment of discovery that never quite comes. The self as creation. So if we're not finding ourselves, what are we doing? According to Szasz, we're creating ourselves, constantly, deliberately, through every choice we make. Think of yourself not as an archaeologist digging for ancient artifacts, but as an artist with a blank canvas. Every decision you make, every habit you form, every relationship you nurture or let go, these aren't revealing who you are, they're determining who you become. This is both liberating and terrifying. Liberating because it means you're not confined to some predetermined identity. You're not stuck being the shy one, or the failure, or the person who can't commit. These aren't discoveries about your true nature. They're simply patterns you've created that you can choose to change. But it's also terrifying because it means you can't blame your problems on not having found yourself yet. You can't wait for self-discovery to solve your issues. You have to take responsibility for actively creating the person you want to be. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine someone who says, "I'm trying to find out if I'm a creative person." The Szaszian response would be, you don't find out if you're creative. You become creative by creating things. You don't discover you're a writer by soul-searching. You become a writer by writing. You don't find out you're brave. You become brave by doing brave things. Practical implications. So what does this mean for your daily life? How does this shift from finding to creating actually change anything? First, it changes how you approach personal growth. Instead of asking, "Who am I really?" you start asking, "Who do I want to become?" Instead of journaling to discover your authentic self, you journal to design your future self. Instead of meditation to find inner truth, you meditate to cultivate qualities you want to develop. Second, it changes how you view your past. Those mistakes you made? They're not revelations of your true, flawed nature. They're simply choices you made that you can choose not to repeat. That success you achieved? It's not because you finally discovered your calling. It's because you created the conditions and developed the skills necessary for that success. Third, it revolutionizes how you handle identity crises. Lost your job and don't know who you are anymore? You're not having an identity crisis. You're having an identity opportunity. You get to create a new version of yourself. Ended a long relationship and feel like you don't know yourself? Perfect. Now you can consciously create who you want to be in this next chapter. This perspective also explains why so many people feel lost after achieving their goals. They thought that success would help them find themselves, but instead they realized that achieving the goal was actually the process of creating themselves. And now that it's done, they need a new project of self-creation. Addressing objections. Now some of you might be thinking, but wait, what about personality traits? What about genetics? What about the unconscious mind? Aren't there aspects of ourselves that we do actually discover? These are valid points. Yes, we have genetic predispositions. Yes, we have unconscious patterns. Yes, there are aspects of our psychology that feel more like discoveries than creations. You might discover you're an introvert, or that you have ADHD, or that you have a talent for music. But here's the key. Even these discoveries don't determine who you are. They're simply the raw materials you work with. An introvert can create themselves as a public speaker. Someone with ADHD can create themselves as highly organized. Someone with musical talent can choose to become a musician, or not. SARS isn't denying that we have inherent traits or tendencies. He's saying that who you are, your identity, your character, yourself, is not determined by these traits, but by what you choose to do with them. Think of it like being given a set of ingredients. Yes, you need to discover what ingredients you have to work with. But the meal you create, that's up to you. And two people with identical ingredients can create completely different dishes. Conclusion and call to action. So where does this leave us? Thomas Sass's insight that the self is something we create, not find, is both a tremendous responsibility and an incredible opportunity. It means you're not on a treasure hunt for some hidden authentic self. You're not waiting for a moment of revelation that will suddenly make everything clear. Instead, you're an artist, an architect, a creator. Every day, with every choice, you're building who you are. The question isn't, have I found myself yet? The question is, what am I creating myself to be? This shift in perspective can be transformative. It means your past doesn't define you, your choices do. You're never too old or too young to recreate yourself. There's no real you that you're betraying by changing. Every moment is an opportunity for self-creation. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, stop asking, who am I? And start asking, who am I creating myself to be? When you face a decision, don't ask, what would the real me do? Ask, what would the person I'm creating do? Because at the end of the day, you're not a fixed entity waiting to be discovered. You're a work in progress, a masterpiece in the making, a story still being written. And the author of that story? That's you. As Sass understood, the self isn't hiding somewhere waiting for you to find it. The self is waiting for you to create it. So what will you create today?